Welcome to the Help or Be Brave podcast show. I'm Amy Ford, and today we're going to be talking to my friend Katie about abortion healing and the importance of abortion healing. I like to at least try to talk about this at least once every season because it's so important. If you might be listening right now and you're like, I think God's healed me, and that's great, but going through a specific abortion healing program is so important. Even if you feel like God has healed, there's just something about more closure that happens specifically with abortion healing, and walking through other women or men that have experienced an abortion, walking through healing with them is so important and valuable. And we met Katie this week and heard her story, and we're super inspired and wanted to have her on today. And I'm so thankful she said yes at a moment's notice. Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, okay. Our team just met you recently, and they loved your passion and your story. And they were like, oh my gosh, you should have Katie on the show. And I'm so thankful that you said yes, and kind of on a quick turnaround, which is amazing. So tell us a little bit about your story.
So I am a post-abortive mom of two. Post-abortive meaning I had an abortion at 20. It was unplanned pregnancy, abusive relationship, just kind of all short sticks on my end. And so I was faced with several difficulties and decided to follow through with an abortion, and went on living my life, and finally came to meet my husband. We got married. We had a house and 2 dogs and just had our first son. And I was very unhappy still. And even with everything I thought I wanted to make me happy, I was not. And that's when I heard God tell me, go to church. So I went into church, and about a year later, after going through a discipleship process, I was ready to rededicate my life to the Lord, but faced a very big question. It was kind of like a head and heart battle of my heart was ready to give to rededicate to the Lord and be on fire for Him. But my head was very worried that if ever faced with the same situation, I would choose an abortion again. And I couldn't figure out how those two could be connected, how I could think one way knowing it's not, God's plan or what He intended for me. So then I realized I was suffering post-abortion syndrome, and I had for several years and did not know that that's what that was. I wasn't able to put my finger on it or put a label on it. And so I went to my pastor's wife and said, I had an abortion and I need help. There's a lot of struggle happening, and I'm ready to get help. And we walked through about a year of post-abortion study and healing, and just really admitting the multitude and the capacity of what I had done, realizing those things with myself, and learning God's forgiveness and His grace. To me, now being here, I'm able to work in a pregnancy center, walking with girls in the same situation I was in, helping them understand their fears, understand even post-abortion. I have clients come in who had sought an abortion, and they're now walking where I was at. And so being able to walk with them, love on them, and let them know, God loves you. And if you feel like you hate yourself and can't figure out how He does. And let's learn to love ourselves the way He does and the way He intended us to.
Okay, so someone might be listening right now and has never heard the term post-abortion syndrome. I think it is what you said. What is that? What is that? What are the symptoms of something like that?
So they could be a multitude of things. Some women may not experience any of them. There can be flashbacks of the procedure or finding out you're pregnant, which you may think are super common in an unplanned pregnancy, and even if they choose to continue with their pregnancy. But flashbacks are very real. The moment you find out never goes away. It's buried in your head, and it's like you're reliving that moment. Every time you think about it, those fears and those anxieties. And then stressors such as your original due date, or the date you had your abortion, having nightmares and stuff like that regarding that procedure experience, or about that time of the due date where you find yourself depressed and those sorts of things around that time, or even, and this is something that I walked through, an obsession with becoming pregnant again, to kind of replace the life that I took. I didn't necessarily realize that's what it was. I just to me, I felt like I couldn't find it in myself to love myself, so I looked for it in men. But really, after kind of going through my post-abortion, I realized I was more obsessed with trying to get pregnant again to be able to change the outcome, when really that outcome would not have been changed. The decision had already been made, and that, it had already happened. I was just trying to replace that in my head. And then, or fears of infertility in the future. Women become immediately scared. What have I done? And am I ever going to be able to have kids again? And those are just a few very common ones that happen.
Yeah, I remember meeting an Embrace Grace girl one time, and we had a special night where we had a few speakers, and there was a guy speaker who he's a pastor at Gateway at our church, and he's amazing, and he was sharing a story about how he got a girl pregnant a long time ago before he was married and paid for her abortion, his girlfriend, at the time, and how much it just devastated him after the fact. And it took him a while to figure out that was kind of the root of the problems and struggles that he was dealing with. And then he went on to have like 6 kids, and it had such a beautiful story. But I remember one of the Embrace Grace moms was really crying. She was pregnant at the time. And she said that she had been really struggling because she had had an abortion in her past, and she kept struggling with thoughts of there was going to be something wrong with this baby that she was carrying, because she thought that, that was like a punishment that God might have for her because of her past abortion, that there was going to be something wrong with this baby, that there could be a special need that the baby has or whatever, all tied to her abortion. Do you think that is a common thought process for girls that maybe are trying to get pregnant or want to get pregnant but have had an abortion in the past, or that are pregnant?
Oh, absolutely. I'm walking that journey now. So my husband and I had decided we were ready for a third, and then are being faced with infertility, which is all new to us, especially after having our first 2 very easily. And even after kind of knowing I had forgiven myself, and understanding that the Lord's forgiveness is something greater than I can ever understand, I immediately blamed myself. I immediately went to, this is punishment. This is, I could have already had 3. I chose to take the life, and so God's kind of telling me, this is what you get. And obviously, the God I believe in does not treat us that way. He is a very forgiving and loving God. But so even girls saying like, oh God, what if I have a disabled baby or something to punish me? And it's realizing that even if that is not a punishment, but what a beautiful blessing, that you've been able to create life and give life, and do those things. But it is very real, and I've even went there, and I'm still doing, I'm still in that infertility journey. So it was not that long ago that I immediately blamed myself, and even told my husband, I said, it's because I had an abortion. I bet that's why I can't get pregnant now. So it's even when, after healing and forgiveness and all those things, it's still, Satan will attack you if you can.
Oh, for sure. And, I love that God, he forgives, and he's full of mercy, and he's full of love. And I just read a statistic this past week that just really floored me. I just sent it actually to that pastor that I was just mentioning earlier. We are about to do a post-abortion healing panel coming up soon in the next few weeks. And I had sent him this statistic that I just couldn't believe. It was done through CareNet and Lifeway, and they've had it out, I think, since like 2015. I can't remember, but there's a series of statistics, but this one just really stood out to me. I was looking at it again, and I think they surveyed 1,000 women. That part I can't really remember, but I think it was 1,000. But they said that 49% of women that have experienced an abortion feel as if when the pastor is talking about forgiveness, it doesn't apply to them and to their abortion, which, 49%. So almost half of the women that are in our churches feel as if that forgiveness doesn't apply to them. And having that mindset, which we know is a lie from the enemy, like what you just said, having that mindset, how much that must hold us back from the things that God has for us. And the enemy doesn't want us to walk in the authority that God gives us. And, Revelation 12:11 says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And sharing our story is what helps us heal. And there's so many women and men that just don't want to talk about it, and they just keep it inside, but yet they have this feeling as if God can never forgive them. And that's so heartbreaking to me. And I wish that if there's any pastors that are listening right now, or ministry leaders, that it's so important to just even bring up the word abortion, that it's healing, and it helps women and men know to, number one, that they're not alone, that they're not the only person in the world that has gone through something like this, and that number two, that he does forgive when we ask for forgiveness, and that he wants to heal our heart. And it's not just as you said, you went through a whole year of healing, and even now, still, even after a year of healing, you have little thoughts that creep up about, that where the enemy lies. Like, healing isn't like I flipped a switch and I'm healed. It's definitely a process, and God, I'm sure, has taken you such a long way from where you've started, but it's definitely something that it's a journey, and I know that the more we share our story, the more that God heals. And I was talking to a counselor not too long ago, and she was saying that whenever she has a new client and they talk about maybe struggles and stuff that they have, she'll hear what their struggles are right now, and then she'll ask them, okay, let's talk about your past. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and things like that. And she said once she starts hearing about their past, once she hears the word abortion, if she hears that, she usually stops there and says, okay, this is where we want the starting point to happen. And so they start kind of really building on what happened around that abortion, because a lot of times the stuff that they're struggling with now could be tied to that, whether they know it or not know it, whether they have, whatever, what was it that you just called it? Post-abortion syndrome. If it's trauma, PTSD from their abortion, they may not know that it's tied to it, but a lot of times it is. And so how to help connect that and help God with the healing process. And I'm sure you go around and tell your story a lot. Have you noticed that when you do that there are people that come up to you afterwards and kind of whisper in your ear, hey, I've had one before, and thank you for sharing your story?
What if one box could save 2 lives? Well, we've created Love Boxes as an invitational gift for single and pregnant women to welcome them and to be a part of a local Embrace Grace support group, helping them to be brave in their choice for life. We ship Love Boxes for free to pregnancy centers all over the nation so that when they have a single and pregnant client walk in their doors, a Love Box can be placed in their hands. These boxes not only encourage a decision for life, but also invite single and pregnant women to join an Embrace Grace support group at a local church, inviting them to be a part of a spiritual family they will walk this season with, and if they'll allow it, their entire lives. To learn more about Love Boxes, visit www.embracegrace.com.
Oh yes, and that's kind of where my passion for sharing my story came from, because I was born and raised Southern Baptist, and my older sister had actually come home pregnant before she got married, and our church asked us to leave. And so that kind of also helped aid in my decision. Like, I had already seen that on the front lines with my sister, and kind of like said, they tried to just kick us out, and they didn't want to. Like, that can't happen in their church. Is really what they just want. They had this front, and they had to hold on to it. And that's why I didn't go back to church for a really long time, because I knew for some reason in my head, I just assumed that if people looked at me, they would know I had had an abortion, even without me telling them. And I just knew that I would be asked to leave. And like you said, even if a pastor was saying, just saying the word abortion, it's so taboo in a church. And and even when I speak in churches, I have to remember, like, I have to ask the pastor or whoever's in the lead of that, is it okay to use that word in your church? Do I have to use the word terminate, or do I need to find a different terminology there? Because it's not, people don't want to talk about it. It's a very dark subject, and a dark time for a lot of women. And yet 1 in 4 women have an abortion. So the rate of women having abortion is the same rate of women who are, or potential miscarriages, which is insane. So if you think of a congregation of people, 200 women, and 1 in 4 of them are having abortions. You cannot be alone in a room, and those numbers don't lie, and those women are struggling. So if you can just say, like, even if you don't know how to handle it, sometimes, a lady that walks with me had never been told that, brought an abortion, someone had brought an abortion to her for help. And so she was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to walk with you, and I'm going to love you. We're going to figure it out. Just let them know, hey, we're here. And if you just need, if you need to pray, you don't have to tell us what happened. You don't have to, you're not ready to say it out loud. You don't have to, but just come and be prayed for. I've never seen it in the church, but some teachers have like little mailboxes and cards, and people can anonymously just say, I need prayer for an abortion, and that pastor could be praying over the whole church, for whoever that may be. Just making that more aware in the church, especially I've noticed a lot of some of the older generations, they don't like to talk about it, yet it's happened there, it's happening now, and it's happened everywhere in between. So just familiarize yourself with the terminology and saying that out loud. And even you can tell them this is going to be an uncomfortable sermon, but it needs to be talked about because it's happening, and no church is exempt, no family is exempt, and no school is exempt.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think gave you the courage? You said that you took a break from going to church, and then you just really felt like it was time to go back. What gave you the courage to try church again after really struggling with worrying about what people were going to think about you?
So I had moved, I moved recently into Fort Worth, and I had met my husband. I had I had a list of things that were going to make me happy. And so I say outside of Christ because I truly believe, like, in those moments, I would have proclaimed that I hated him. In any moment, I would have, said he did these things to me. So there was really a moment where I was outside of Christ. But, I was like, these things are going to make me happy. I want a husband. I knew a husband was going to make me happy. I'd wanted it since I was little. And so I found my husband. We had 2 dogs. We had just bought our house. We had just had a son. So I'd, given birth and walking motherhood after having an abortion. So it was possible for me. I kind of stepped out of the fear, like it was never going to happen. And then a week after I got married, all the things that were going to make me happy and that life was going to be beautiful, and we were just, little white picket fence house that was supposed to fulfill my joy. I woke up and I was just not happy. I was looking at my husband like, I know I should be just overwhelmed with joy and love, and our son's laying next to it, like the things that you would think would be enough.
Yeah,
and it was
but
not
you knew
enough.
there was something
And
more.
in my heart, I knew. My head was not ready to admit it. My heart knew I needed the Lord. He was the only thing that was going to make me happy. And luckily, I had the background to know that. I don't know, there are plenty of women that don't have that background. So a whole new struggle was presented to them of them trying to figure out, who Christ is, and finding that, there's joy in that. And so I looked up one Sunday morning. So it was a Sunday when I woke up, and I was like, I need to go to church. And I just Googled the church, and it was the closest one to me. And they happened to have a service time that gave me enough time to get ready. And I walked in, and it was the second I walked in the door, he just took everything.
Love.
And I really feel like I could feel it, and just, I get chills talking about it now. But I just really felt him saying, thank you. Now let's heal your soul. Let's
Love
do it together.
that.
I want to do it with you.
So good. And then your pastor, you said you walked alongside with your pastor's wife. So what, you right now, as coming to a close, like, what is your favorite abortion healing program, or is there one specific that you're pointing people to as you share about what your passions are?
So I use the Forgiven and Set Free program.
I love that one.
And that's the one I'm using with my current client. I do, we use Surrendering the Secret at Pregnancy Help Free, where I'm at now. And so I'll pull from there if there's something that I think is
applicable.
She's stuck in anger, and we've been through anger here, and so I need some new pointers. I will pull from anywhere, but I feel like I pull towards the Forgiven and Set Free one just because that's what I went through, and it's so personal to me. And what I really like about that one is several of the ones that I've kind of read through, they share their story and then ask questions. And so they say, like, oh, this was my experience and this is how I felt. And then say, how do you feel? And knowing myself and the denial I was in, I felt like if I had walked in one like that, it would have been easy to just be like, oh, me too, I felt angry, and not really dig to the core and have to come up with my own feelings and have to answer my own questions. And so Forgiven and Set Free just kind of more goes, hey, read these verses. Here's a Bible story that, talks about anger. Now think back to your experience. What made you angry? and you have to come up with your own answers. You know, you can't say, oh, so-and-so's boyfriend made her angry and her mom made her angry. Mine too. You really had to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. So I know that there may be people that are listening that maybe either they have experienced an abortion and they know that maybe there's something stirring in their heart right now that they feel like they need to get connected to an abortion healing group. Check out a local pregnancy center near you. Check out a local church near you. A lot of churches and pregnancy centers have abortion healing groups. I know our church has it at every campus, and then maybe you're listening and you're a pastor and you're like, I don't think we do have abortion healing groups. I just want to encourage you guys. It is so important to have abortion healing groups at our churches. We have to talk about it. We don't have to do like a whole sermon around abortion is wrong, but we need to at least be saying the word. We need to be talking about God's forgiveness and his mercy, and that, if 1 in 4 have experienced an abortion rate is exactly the same inside the church as it is outside. There's sitting in our pews and they don't feel like they can talk about it. And so whenever people like me and Katie are sharing our stories, then we get those whispers in our ear of like, I've had one. And that they have to whisper because they haven't really been around a safe place within their church to know that it's something it's okay to talk about, because what we talk about is what God can heal. And we can create a Me Too movement within the abortion healing. Like if we can talk about the trauma of abortion, but how God can forgive and heal is so amazing and important in our churches for sure. And Katie, thank you so much for being bold and sharing your story and your passion to help other people heal. What do you see is the biggest change in closing between before you had the courage to try church and before you started a year long of really processing your abortion, and between now of where you are right now? What's the biggest change in your life? And I know it's probably the hardest thing you've ever done is going through healing, and God has still continued to heal. But what do you see as a big change in your life since you started?
I would say true happiness. I don't have to lie or put up a front, to people for them to think my life is happy and I'm fulfilled. There's bad days, but I don't have to hide that I'm happy, and I can proclaim that the Lord did that for me. So really true happiness, and not the brokenness. To be able, to be able to feel the happiness and know that all stems from one amazing God.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Katie, for connecting with us today and sharing our story. And I hope that it inspires everyone that's listening to either start an abortion healing group, make sure an abortion healing group is happening at their church, or join an abortion healing group and start the healing journey. So I appreciate you. And I know that your story is going to help set people free, because free people free people. So I just so appreciate your courage in doing that. Thank you so much for being on today, Katie.
Absolutely. And I'll just add really quick, if you are a pastor, the I want to start a group or somebody, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to do this too. If you're not sure where to start, you can reach out. You can give my email to anybody or my phone number to anybody. If it takes it, I'll fly to you and teach and help you walk through how to set up a program. I'm no expert, but I feel so strongly and so passionate about making sure that women feel heard and that they know they're not alone, that I will walk the earth to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Yeah, we will for sure link your email address to our show notes. So if anyone's listening and they want to reach out to you, they can connect with you. I so appreciate it. Thank you, Katie.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I hope that you were inspired by listening today. If you know someone that has had an abortion, please send this episode over to them. You can send over by iTunes, Spotify, or they can watch on YouTube. And we just hope that by people sharing their stories about having an abortion, that they will be inspired to join an abortion healing group, and even thinking through maybe some of those post-abortion syndrome issues that maybe someone might be dealing with, or PTSD from an abortion, that maybe there could be some ties to, whether it's you or someone you know, that maybe there's ties to an abortion. You can start that abortion healing journey, whether through a group or a support group or with your therapist. It's so very important because abortion is hard on us. It's a trauma, and we want to make sure that you get the healing that you need, and we don't want you to feel ashamed. We want you to know that you're not alone, and that so many women and men have experienced an abortion as well. So we want to make sure that you can find the support that you need, and to know that we are in this with you. We love you, and we're proud of you for starting your healing journey. It might be the hardest thing you've ever done, but it'll be the most amazing thing you've ever done. So please share this with all of your friends, and we are excited about what we have next week. We'll see you next time.